Hello everyone, this is your market update for January 10th through January 17th, and it will be presented by Aaron Austin, Tyson Clark, Mallory Lunsford, and Jake Olsen. Overview. The market update for this week is the US GDP had over 3.2% growth in the third quarter of 2017. The Dow Jones was up, closing over 25,000, while the Nasdaq was up to over 7,200, with the S&P 500 reaching 2,787. The CPI is set to raise 0.2% on the month-to-month basis in 2018. The Federal Reserve Board is set to raise interest rates by 0.25%. Consumer spending is at 2.1%, and personal income rose to 0.3% by the end of the year. Here we can see the market returns from last December through January. The Dow is up 15%, while both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 were up about 12%. All three ended strong at the end of the year and have kept the momentum through January.
For recent equity, convertible, and debt financing news, one of the first stories we found was about Jan10. It's a retailer that has been holding meetings with debt holders, and a bankruptcy filing is likely. It could be filed as soon as February, but the company is trying to convince bondholders that there are private equity firms willing to provide capital to save the company. Also, Goldman Sachs and the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board are leading a $1 billion deal to recapitalize funds managed by the private equity firm Enfoca from Peru. It's one of the largest secondary deals involving a Latin America private equity manager.
Spotify was recently involved in convertible financing. They were initially given $1 billion of convertible debt, which was supposed to give the lenders the ability to turn their loans into equity. Spotify, however, converted some of that debt into equity and sold it to Tencent, who's the Chinese internet giant. This ended up helping Spotify as they are pursuing becoming a publicly traded company. And although the lenders may not get exactly what they originally intended, they still can get some equity, but now Tencent owns a portion of that as well.
Mergers and acquisitions. A surprising acquisition is being done by Itochu Corporation of Japan. Shell is selling its control of an oil field in Iraq. Since 2003, production in the area under the control of Shell has gone from 450,000 barrels of oil per day down to 250,000. Yet Shell maintains its holdings of natural gas in the area. Fiat Chrysler CEO has continued to give vague information about the direction of the company. Last year he said he'd be willing to sell the Ram and Jeep brands. He has since backtracked those comments, along with speculation that Fiat would merge with GM. The CEO is also preparing to step down next year. AT&T is having issues with its $85 billion takeover of Time Warner. The Justice Department sued to block the deal, and now companies are being asked questions about what kind of power the deal would lead to. And Fujifilm is looking to acquire Xerox. Fujifilm is planning to spend more than $4 billion on acquisitions over the next 3 years. SS&C is acquiring DST Systems in a deal worth $5.4 billion and financing it with debt and equity. And the Nordstrom family was looking to take the company private in a $10 billion deal that fell through last fall. Since then, Nordstrom shares are up 20%. Fox is also buying about 10 television stations. The stations include major football markets as Fox looks to focus on broadcast television, live news, and sports. Also, a potential merger between Qualcomm and Broadcom has many Chinese manufacturers upset. The merger would create the world's third largest chip company.
The most valuable mergers and acquisitions during the last 7 days are what is referred to as the top picks of the week. Firstly, we have Singapore Life, who is acquiring the business portfolio of Zurich Life Insurance. Zurich had about 5,000 policies in total, and the acquisition should be complete during the first 6 months of this year. The total value of the entire transaction will be over $4.5 billion. Second in line is Tele2, who is acquiring Korn Hearn. Tele2 is taking in the cable TV and broadband group, which will end up being another pay TV and entertainment company following the close of the transaction, which will hopefully be by the end of this year. The total value is said just to be over $3 billion. There is also a more well-known company involved in an acquisition right now. Kroger is rumored to be looking into acquiring Boxed. Now, Boxed is a company who allows for staple items such as toilet paper and milk, etc., to be purchased online in bulk instead of having to go into the store. Estimates range Boxed to be worth up to $500 million. This transaction does not surprise many, given that both online industries as well as grocers are looking to merge their industries so that people can easily get what they need online. Both Target and Amazon have acquired companies to help them do so. However, Boxed is also looking for other companies to show interest in them, and so it will be interesting to see what happens next.
IPO developments. So far in January, there have been 5 IPOs priced. We can see here that there have been many more IPOs filed, upcoming, and withdrawn. The IPOs announced for January have a relatively high value, with 2 of them being valued over $1 billion. These 5 IPOs that have been priced this month are listed here. They fluctuate in value, with the lowest offer amount coming from Q Biopharma at $66 million and a price per share of $7.50, and the highest offer amount coming from Industrial Logistics Properties Trust at $480 million and a price per share of $24. This is a relatively high number of priced IPOs for this time period from what I have seen in the past. One of the announced IPOs that has sparked investors' interest is ADT, a security systems provider. It has offered over 100 million shares for a total of $2 billion for next week. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America Merrill Lynch are some of the book-running managers. One of the risk factors mentioned in the prospectus is the company's liability for obligations of the Brinks Co., thanks to its acquisition of a business formerly owned by Brinks called Broadview Security. That business is subject to the Coal Industry Retiree Health Benefit Act of 1992, meaning it must cover the costs of health care coverage for retired workers suffering from coal-related ailments. January has seen 15 secondary offerings. The highest valued offering came from Sempra Energy, who had 2 offerings on January 4th, totaling over 38 million shares. These shares are being offered in connection with a forward sales agreement offered by the company. The 4 highest offerings after Sempra are as follows: Taylor Morrison Home Corporation with 19 million shares, Oniok with 19 million shares, Annalee Capital Management with 17 million shares, and Taylor Morrison Home Corporation with another 11 million shares. President Trump's corporate tax cut that lowers the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% has had many effects on the economy. Walmart has boosted their minimum wage for hourly employees from $10 per hour to $11 per hour. Wells Fargo has increased its minimum wage to $15 per hour. Many other companies have announced wage increases along with one-time employee bonuses. These tax cuts also give many retail businesses ammunition needed to fight off online giant Amazon. The tax cut has caused many large banks to take on one-time expenses related to their taxes payable that will lower their expected earnings per share, but will lead to massive gains in the upcoming quarters. Wells Fargo, however, was able to post a gain of $3.35 billion because of some of their positions on future taxes. With the new year just starting, we look back at 2017 and see the first annual decline of the US dollar in 5 years. The ICE index, which measures the dollar against 6 large global currencies, fell nearly 10% in 2017. This was sparked by high economic performance by foreign countries, lower than expected rate increases from the Fed, the euro's increase in strength, and the fact that the dollar didn't react as much as expected to the tax reform.
Political and world news. Political news that's impacting the market right now is President Donald Trump's remarks last week which has stopped lawbreakers' ability to reach a deal on immigration and spending levels, according to congressional aides, which could result in a possible government shutdown at the end of the week. Also, the Supreme Court has just agreed to hear South Dakota versus Wayfair, which may reverse the 1992 ruling that prevents state and local governments from requiring retailers to collect sales tax for online purchases. Finally, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said Friday the U.S. is working actively with its allies to make sure cryptocurrencies do not become a tool for bad people to do bad things. For the world market update, stocks got a boost from stronger than expected corporate earnings. Gold hits a 4-month peak as dollar index slumps to the lowest in 3 years. Crude closes at $64.30, posts 4th straight week of gains. Hedge funds. The latest news for hedge funds are big hedge funds want in on Bitcoin. Such investors are looking to profit either by buying Bitcoin and other virtual currencies or by betting against them. Executives of firms including QuantBot Technologies, Cubist Systematic Strategies, and others say they are working to understand how they might be able to profit from Bitcoin. Already around 20 funds, managing a total of roughly $2 billion in assets, solely or predominantly trade cryptocurrencies. Warren Buffett further reveals succession plan at Berkshire Hathaway. Firm names Gregory Abel and Ajit Jain vice chairman, suggesting one of them is in line to replace Buffett. Mr. Jain is named vice chairman of insurance operations, while Mr. Abel was named vice chairman of the non-insurance business operations. At age 87, Buffett is still in good health, but states that 10 years would be a long time for him to stay at the post.